Hey guys, this is Perry with SideQuest Global, and we are doing some talking about the FTC GLBA compliance, which is actually due for you to have completed by 12/09/2022. This compliance kind of goes really in depth and has a lot of add-ons that businesses are going to be required to have. We're going to talk about the businesses that have to have it. We're going to talk a little bit about the history. We're going to even talk about what happens if you don't have it done and you don't have a compliance officer to go to jail for you. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and step right in. I'm going to start off because Gary Krantz with TechTarget did a real deep dive into this, and he talked about the history of the basically this system here is a reappeal of the large portion of Glass-Steagall Act of 1933 and the Bank Holding Company Act of 1956. So we'll jump forward quite a bit, and in 1999 they started really digging in and changing a lot of stuff to protect basically your consumer, or if you are a consumer, it started protecting your information. December 9th, 2021, the FTC laid out its guidelines out for the safeguard, and they actually gave it a starting date of December 9th, 2022. They give every business a year to get everything ready, which is a good amount of time to do it, but what we're finding out is a lot of companies are not jumping on this yet, and it's going to be quite brutal if they don't. We'll start going through what exactly they're looking for. They mention a lot that they're looking for personal identifiable financial information, but this really also is more a PII type of compliance. They're just throwing financials in there because people tend to pay a little more attention to when they start talking about financials. So what are the three main objectives that they're looking for? One, they want to ensure the safety and confidentiality of customer information. Now, what this means is and they say that it's for non-banking financial companies, but really what they're saying is if you do any type of financials and you have customer information, you pretty much have to ensure the safety of it. And this is from both internal and external attacks. More information gets leaked from an inside source than from an outside source. Protect against threats or hazards to the security and integrity of the information. Again, we're still diving into they basically want somebody to monitor the systems, make sure that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, their information is protected. And to also protect against unauthorized access to customer information. And this one here really looks at the fact that they do not want anybody who is not supposed to have access to it, including employees, from having access. Now, the 8 required elements, and actually it is way more than 8, even though they say 8, is they want to establish an individual who oversees and enforces all the information that is on your networks. Networks can also count as work-at-home employees and your cloud-based backup systems. This individual must have some level of information security training and knowledge. And here's the big kicker is that for some of you, and it's going to make it harder for especially you guys who has a regular IT person. This regular IT person, if they're going to be doing a lot of your compliance, we are going to be looking at these guys being able to stand up and get fined and do fun stuff like going to jail, which I don't know a lot of them are really going to want to do that unless you really start paying them a bit more. But on the lighter note of it is that a qualified individual can be a third-party vendor. And that's where companies like SideQuest Global comes in, because we actually have the ability and the training to do that. Next, they want to conduct periodic risk assessments and various security risks to customers' information. They want it to be documented. They want it to basically they want to know exactly what we found, how we found it, what we did to correct the information, and how we are making it so that nobody else can actually access that information. The next thing that they're talking about is implementing customer information safeguards. Now, this here is kind of a huge area, because what this is doing is it's telling you that you need to do everything in your power to safeguard your information. Now, with us, our basic package actually does this, but for you guys, they want to make sure that certain people don't have certain privileges. They pretty much want to go to a non-trust network, which I know some of you might have been hearing quite a bit about, but basically the no trust virtually gives no access to anything that anybody should be able to get into, but it also makes them re-verify their credentials, whether it's on an hour basis, every couple hours, or day. You have to basically maintain that type of access. It also requires a 2FA. Yeah, I know some people are like, oh my gosh, we're hearing about Google 2FA getting hacked, Microsoft, all of them. We actually use another 2FA. So, and at times we tend to kind of move from different software packages as we start seeing vulnerabilities pop up. That's part of our job. That's part of your compliance officer's job, is to move you out of software and into new software that is actually safer, and again move again if that becomes a problem. The next thing that they're wanting is for your people to know how to basically get rid of trash, security information, PII stuff. What a lot of people don't know is that when you create something on your computer, you save it there, you delete it, it actually doesn't get deleted like what you think. It actually goes kind of into what they call the shadow. And what this is meant to do is it is meant so that if you have an issue, you need something restored, somebody, a data restoration specialist can come through and restore that document, that file, that picture, whatever. It's one of the ways that we have aided law enforcement in the past to help them gain evidence that they do need, that somebody thought since they deleted, it's no longer there. They're requiring password management systems. We're not talking about Google or any of the other web browsers systems. So some of them are secure, but they're wanting to have something a little bit stronger, which we do have, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But they're asking for a lot of stuff that most companies do not have, including continuous monitoring. They want test or monitoring of the effectiveness of various security controls used to detect attempted attacks on systems. Now with us, we do monitor systems 24/7. We do make sure that documents are not being moved from one system to the other. We kind of really overwatch that. But where they say either do the testing, we actually have a in-house pen testing system, so we will go through and do a lot of the pen testing within the system. We don't just do a pen testing from the inside, we also do simulated attacks onto the outside to make sure nobody can get in, as well as people have moving rights through the network. We kind of check up on that. Our pen testing does a little bit different on some of the stuff we do, because when people think pen testing, they think this is just an automated thing. No, it's actually a multi function. Most pen testing companies put a lot of effort in pen testing. Pen testing is done with software to see if they can break into a system, or like with us, we'll move around the system. But it also involves different peripherals like printers, VoIP phones, other peripherals attached directly to the network, which could actually host a hacker to get into your networks. We also run your employees through a very comprehensive training for cybersecurity. This is an ongoing thing. We require so much time per month, sometimes even per week, depending on the hacking. And it's nothing like hours or anything like that. It's like maybe 10-15 minutes at a time. But we kind of really require an ongoing training for cybersecurity so your people can be kept up. And this is actually part of a pen test, is making sure your employees are not your biggest factor. We do reports on those, and we don't give them up annually. We actually turn around and give them up monthly. You business owners pretty much want to know what's going on. Your CEOs, I know your board wants to know what's going on. Your CTOs or CISOs will want to make quarterly reports on stuff that's going on. The next thing we do is we actually go through, and I'm going to use this word a lot, is a very comprehensive procedure and policies that we set into play. These are going to not just be for what happens if we get hacked. We actually break that down even farther on with our policies and procedures on what if we get hacked from the outside, what if we get hacked from the inside, what if we get ransomware, what if we turn around and fire an employee, what happens if we hire an employee, management changes, IT changes. I mean, there's going to be so much policies that we will actually create that we will kind of have a solution for your company, even if the building disappears. We'll have a policy in play that will actually make sure that your customers are taken care of, your employees are taken care of, and to be quite honest, your pocketbook's taken care of. Now the next thing that they require, number 6, which is to verify that third-party services are pretty much making sure that everything that they're doing is kind of following with protection. Now this one here is kind of going to really push a lot of businesses that would not normally be looked at by the FTC into being looked at the FTC's newest enforcers on the block, which is going to be your company. you have a vendor, you have a business partner, anybody who kind of has any type of access into your system at all. They have to be looked at. The reasoning for why this has been put together is we look at the 2020 attack that was done through SolarWinds and the 2021 attack that was done through Kaseya. We also look at the multiple attacks that have been done through Google. All of these attacks were supply chain attacks, vendor attacks. They turned around and they, for some companies, with the SolarWinds one, we had, and even the Kaseya one, we had people where we had businesses on their knees for up to 2-3 months, where operations was just about degraded to a pure slowdown, and as well as the businesses actually having to get a hold of their clients and saying, hey, our security company has been breached. Our IT department had been breached. You guys might have been breached. So it kind of really added the flair in there where any business that deals with your customer information, you're going to want to verify this. You're going to want to say, hey, do you have these safeguards? Do you really have these safeguards? You're going to really want to make sure that it's there, because if not, if they get hacked, they get breached, information gets taken from them, but it's listed as you're the one who your clients sue first. Then you can go after the other company. But if it's a large amount of money, large amount of clients, and they hit you, you might not have the resources to even remotely think about going after the other company. You might just be bankrupt, or in this case, not only might you be bankrupt, but you might also be in jail. So you're going to need to have somebody that is going to be really diligent in looking in on that and asking all the right questions. The next one, number 7, is we have to create an incident response plan. This one here is kind of like your policies and procedures, but it is exactly that. We have to have a real plan down. This is a plan that well, not just we, but the company does kind of like the fire drills, where we have literally, if somebody's actively in the network, what do we do? How do we handle this? We have to do drills on this. We have to do drills on what if an employee is taking stuff out of the building via, camera, or say we find them moving documents onto thumb drives and stuff like that. We have to be able to, or we have to know exactly what to do, and we have to have something in place along with testing it to make sure it works. So if it doesn't work, we can actually change that and get it working. We also have to make sure and set up specific routes of communications. In fact, I'll kind of talk about something that had happened to us last year, where we had a company that hired us. It was their board of directors hired us to go in, and we had found movement between 2 C-level people, and we didn't know who we needed to talk to at that point in time, because we were still in the initial planning stage. And basically the 2 C-level people kind of really panicked when we were being brought in, because two of those people were two of the people that we would have had communications with in case of an internal hacking, yet they were the ones who were doing the hacking. So we had no specific ways for real communications. Now, we have to assure that the qualified individual reports are written. Okay, we don't write reports anymore, as you guys probably figured, because I doubt you guys do too. So we don't do this on an annual basis. We actually do it every month. This will be kind of a detailed report of everything we have done, all the attacks that was attempted. This is through multiple different types of attacks. We attempt to try to figure out what attack they're doing and where they're located at, but sometimes that's hard to do on the fly. So basically, we do a lot of reports for anything that happens. And it also will include documents that highlight any risk assessments, any risk management controls, service provider contracts. We will basically be going through and kind of doing a real, I guess you could say, a HIPAA build on you guys. The only difference between this and HIPAA is the fact that the Federal Trade Commission is taking this way more serious. Now we'll look at the businesses subject to this, which is basically a partial list. I really did not want to kind of put everything down and go through it, but it covers almost most industries that cover anything, like accountants, ATM operators. And for a lot of you consumers, you guys can request information about any ATMs that are third-party ATMs. And if you guys run a business, retail, anything, and a third-party ATM company comes and approaches you, you guys can actually request proof of their compliance. They're really going after car dealers, both new and used. In fact, they have a whole special section just specifically for car dealers. Any of the loan companies, business, personal loans, payday loans, anything like that. Car rental places they're going after. Credit card processors. So believe it or not, you guys can request the FTC compliance regulation information that they have in play. They are actually going to be required to do the same thing with you guys, believe it or not. So this is something that we have to do pretty quickly and get going. The credit unions, of course, credit reporting companies, of course. We do have debt collectors, and I brought this up in the last seminar that I was in, but we have quite a few debt collectors here where I live in San Antonio. Ran into one. I really wish I could remember their name, but they blew me away. I walked in and the guy is all like, yes, we have a whole compliance team. They introduced me to the compliance team. We kind of really sat down. We looked at what they had in play. What they had in play was phenomenal. The actual owner of the credit collection company is a real, I don't know, I didn't like him. He was real slimy sounding. But what they told me is that when he started the business, another company that he was working for did get breached, And even though he was trying to collect on people, he saw exactly what that breach did to some of the people they were trying to collect on, and that's why he started his company, because he was not going to have that happen to anybody else. And he spent a lot of money in getting them going, and I was just super impressed by it. We're looking at financial advisory firms. This one here is, it says financial software developers and operators. But this one here, I had actually got a clarification on. It is not financial software, it is all software. So literally anything that gathers any type of, again, PIFI, and we're going to go over that here shortly. Basically, they have to be compliant. Hedge fund companies, non-bank mortgage lenders. And this even counts title companies. Again, there's the payday lenders. Property appraisers have to have this. Real estate firms, and what is meant by real estate firms is anybody who sells real estate. Period. I got clarification on that. If you sell real estate, you have to be compliant. Retailers. The retailers that they're really talking about, because there's a lot of different types of retailers out there, to be honest with you. Retailers who have those points clubs, memberships. They do the credit cards, like Walmart, JCPenney's. You could get a Walmart card or a JCPenney card. You have to be part of the, or you have to really follow this compliance. There's a lot of businesses out there that don't do any of that stuff. I'm trying to think of one right off the hand, but if they don't ever ask you for your name or any information, you just go in, grab what you want, slide and go. They don't really have, they have compliances that they have to follow, which actually falls under what their banking compliance as far as being able to do credit cards. But if they don't gather a single name from you, or the credit card information does not pop up on the screen with your name on it, they don't have to follow this compliance at all. Next one under that is stockbrokers, and again, tax preparers, university, colleges, and trade schools. Okay, basically, as you guys probably figured out, that this here is information, because of some of the stuff they're protecting against is not just financial, but it can actually affect your financials. So they want to make sure that they protect or have those guys up to compliance. But they also have anyone who is a vendor or a partner with any of the industries that are forced into this compliance. Basically, doctor's offices, if you're not doing any, hey, we'll give you this type of thing, you guys should be fine under your HIPAA, but you guys need to really look at your HIPAA, make sure your people are following your HIPAA, make sure your IT is up to HIPAA. We've stepped into several doctor's offices, dental offices, clinics, where it's kind of like walking through a tulip patch. I mean, you can wander through their network and not see another cybersecurity block anywhere. A lot of times they think their IT companies take care of it, and they don't. Now, the one thing that is required, or what they're looking at as far as keeping secure, is names, addresses, bank account information, and financial data, biometric and related data, which is an important one. A lot of people think that usernames and passwords are super important, which they are. But biometric stuff is getting huge. It is a single sign-on where a lot of times basically from your biometric, it will actually just allow you in. Biometric information, if you have it set up on your bank actually gets the biometric information. And I've tested this out where I utilize my wife's iPhone. I have an Android, and I logged into my bank account information off of her phone, which I've never done before. And she's able to do the same with mine. A lot of different companies are doing that. Apple has gone real heavy with the facial recognition, and with all that information, you can take over somebody's life. You can devastate them. You can get into every aspect of everything. So that is one of the biggest things that they're looking at. Birth dates, car purchases, and this one is important too, because if I have information about a car purchase that you've done, I can actually reverse it and take your car. It kind of goes through with home purchases too, but that is meant for another seminar that we put on. Credit history, including property records and purchasing history. And here's the one for the universities and stuff: education level and academic performances. I know you're going, hey, that's not really financial, but it is. With those two pieces of information, you can actually step into a job doing it. You can blackmail them. So say, I'm going to make up a name, Dougie Smith finished school. He went to a business. The business hired him. They hired him off of his diploma because it's kind of an entry-level job. But little Dougie there is working. Somebody hacks his stuff, finds out that he is working as a biologist, for instance, and he just scraped by in his biology stuff, and they turn around and he is working on something real important, but he's just being a gopher. For instance, they needed everybody to have a biology degree, but with him, they're literally, hey, Dougie, go get me a cup of coffee. Hey, go get me a candy bar. Dude, pick up that petri dish off the floor type of thing. But what could happen is they could turn around and go to Dougie's supervisor, and say, hey, we know this dude really should not be there. Pay us a lot of money or else he's not there. And you guys might be saying, well, this is kind of a weird situation. Why would they do that? They've done it. They've done it several times. We've seen it and don't quite assess that information. We've seen lawyers drop out of lawsuits for that reason. High-profile lawyers drop out of lawsuits because they're not qualified to do that. We've heard medical doctors who've gotten into trouble because of the fact that they practice a part of medicine that they were not kind of trained to deal with. So many things like that, and that all comes from this, where they have stolen academic information and they tried to get them to pay and they refused, or it fell upon deaf ears. Employment data, in reference drawn from other data. This is where you also have to make sure that A, you're fully compliant, B, your vendors and partners and users are compliant also. Internet and other electronic information. The next real important one, and this also goes back to the car stuff and to cell phones, is the geolocation data. Right now, I know you guys have heard about people putting tracking are trackers onto vehicles, or the iTags or the Samsung tabs or whatever to track people. What people don't know is that some car dealers are actually putting putting trackers into used vehicles to keep track of where they're at, but new car dealers have actual access to get into the Navstar and stuff like that, so that they can actually track a vehicle that way. This makes it easy so that if really you want to keep track of that person who flipped you off or something like that, so you could go mess with them or something, all you got to do is pull over, get their VIN number, and boom. You have the ability to look up information, find out who the car dealer was. If you can, hack into them, get the Navstar ID number, boom, you can get right in, track where your vehicle is at. And we're seeing that more and more, especially when we watch that fun TV commercial, I think it was for BMW, where the little girl goes, "I'm going to sneak out and go see my friends." And the father is there in bed going, "I know exactly when she sneaks out to go see her friends, and I know where she goes," and he holds up his phone. That information is scary, because in today's world, we are seeing a whole lot more of attempted, basically kidnapping of people, or I should say women. I shouldn't say people, because it's mainly women they're going after. But we're seeing a lot more of those happening, and this kind of deals with that. Personal income, Social Security and data, and of course the famous tax information. We will now go over the fun stuff. What happens if you're not compliant? Now, your company alone, and this is just part of it, your company alone can be fined up to $100,000 per violation. Okay, that does not mean that you are going to get fined for $100,000. It just means that if you really PO that auditor that's coming in and give them a hard time, guess what? You got 10 employees that have not gone through cybersecurity training. That's $1 million right there for your business to pay. Better yet, you don't have them set up with a 2auth or any type of password management. Hey, that's $2 million right there if you really made them mad. But then we can also turn around and add on to officers and directors. Officers and directors is also referring to owners, and compliance officers. So the officers, if we're looking at C-level, is of course the CEO, COO, CISO, and CTO. Those are the 4 that get hit by this. And the directors, yeah, that's everybody on the board for the company. Now imagine how happy your board would be if they turned around, didn't know that you guys were not compliant, and they get hit with a up to a $10,000 fine per. They would not be happy. Then the next thing is licenses. So basically, the auditor will have the ability to begin the revocation process of your license. We are looking into getting some confirmation on how long that could take. We're hearing that it could be when they take you to court, that could be it, or it could also be immediate. Some states that already do revocations for licenses for anything, it generally turns into a news article. You gotta block it out on your vehicle. You have to tell people that when they call you, and if it's a license thing that is requires a license, you can't do it anymore. So literally, if you're like with me, I'm in San Antonio, Texas, of course. If a air conditioning company here loses their license, they're no longer an air conditioning company. They're just a pretty white, or they're a pretty truck company that drives around town, and that's it. The next thing, which could be held up for business owners, it could be held up for CEOs, COOs, CISOs, CTOs, and the compliance officers, is you can serve up to 5 years in prison for your violations. And that is the big clincher right there. You can serve time. Now, the scary thing on this is we're probably going to see a whole bunch of IT guys who are head of IT tend to get nailed on this, because a lot of companies believe that their IT does cybersecurity and does compliance. What is not understood in that process is IT generally deals with the hardware side of the house. They deal with hardware, they deal with everything talking to everything, and they deal with like virus scanners and stuff like that. Cybersecurity side of the house really deals with data disappearing, data being moved, the protection of everything data-wise on there, the training, the threat detection. They kind of work hand in hand, but they're two separate departments. Compliance is just a group of people who kind of do the policy procedures and stuff like that, and turn around and tells the other two departments what to do. In most cases, an IT department for a company does not have the time to do that. So many times they're answering calls, they're dealing with a bunch of different issues. So this is where it's important that you actually get a compliance officer in and somebody who knows cybersecurity. Now we'll kind of discuss how we can get you compliant, because we can actually bring all three of those worlds together, because we have all three of those departments. But if you have an IT company, we tend to really help them, and we kind of make their lives way easier. But what we do is we look for that information. We look for general PII information network-wide. Wherever that data lies, in many cases, it should not be lying there. If it's lying there on purpose, say a billing computer that holds a lot of information and holds a lot of documents, holds a lot of different things, and they're not putting it up onto a server, or they can't put it up on a server for some reason or another, we have to encrypt that. We have to encrypt whatever devices that you utilize to hold people's information. But when we dig for information, we're not just looking for names, addresses, and stuff. We are looking for social security numbers, addresses, phone numbers, all sorts of different things that it will give us a report. But it also gives us a report if it's something that looks like it could be any of that type of information. That way it can be analyzed by you guys to really tell what it is and get it into the appropriate spot, whether it's deleting it off of that PC, or secure deleting it off the PC, or just moving it into the server. We run both generally a vulnerability scan and a pen test. And then we tend to thoroughly go through any issues we find. We run a vulnerability test again every Saturday. We run this because different software can pull you out of vulnerability pretty much by accident. We run a pen test. We actually try to do a pen test every month. We have every year. Some of our clients just say, hey, do it every quarter. It doesn't matter as long as we do it at least once a year according to the compliance, which we run way more. We place your employees again through a very in-depth cybersecurity training. We tend to go through and really train them on a lot of different issues, including the new popular, what they're calling the CEO attack, where it is a hacker gets the CEO's email address and actually emails employees emails asking them questions. Same thing with the IT department. The IT one tends to catch people really bad because these emails come from what looks like the IT department, and it's asking for, hey, we're trying this program, we're trying this, we need your username and password for the main server because we can no longer see them, and we've told you to change them. But then they'll turn around and put in the username and password. Boom, hackers have that. On the scarier side of that, one of the things that we're starting to see now is so many of the stuff is not benchmarked as far as the email address, and they actually turn around and utilize the actual email address. We put pretty much all our threat detection software, backup stuff, elevated administration stuff into action, and we start monitoring 24/7. We set up a chain for us of people who we're supposed to get a hold of and how we're supposed to get a hold of them. And this pretty much gets you up to compliance. And I thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us or reach out to me. And I'll look forward to talking to you guys.